Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Okay, so guys, welcome to this video. I hope you guys can hear me. The sound should be okay, but just in case if the sound isn't okay, let me know so I can boost it or something. I'm trying to use my other mic here, so hopefully the sound is going to be better quality. But let me know inshallah if you guys can or you can't hear. Either way, inshallah. Okay, so guys, I hope you guys are all well. Today is a very windy day where I am. I don't know in the rest of the country, is it windy? I had today a course I delivered about Ramadan and fasting, so I did that, alhamdulillah. And I was supposed to actually go to London. There was a talk there. Jazakallah khair, Jado. There was a talk there I was supposed to attend for scholars, but the thing was I was tired, extremely exhausted, and it was I don't know, 3 hour journey there. So you imagine 3 hours gonna have to drive, and then I'll be knackered. So unfortunately, I can't go. So and it's windy as well, so it's a bit dangerous. Anything can happen. It's supposed to be some sort of a windstorm or something. Anyway, so you guys can't hear. Can you hear? Can you not hear? Hello, Fun. Can you hear? Awasik. Wa alaikum assalam. Can you guys hear? Alright, so whilst you guys are going to answer, so when it's very windy, yeah, guys, make sure that you drive safely. Yeah, make sure that you don't do some crazy driving around, and make sure that debris in the street, you save yourself from that. Because a lot of time what can happen is things from the side, especially these kind of wheelie bins, they can just drop in front of you and you can hit it. Or maybe someone's walking across the street and they can hit themselves. It's sometimes it's a shame where sometimes a person might get hit by a car just because the person wasn't very careful about the wind. So be very careful about the wind, guys. And the wind is a ni'mat from Allah, a blessing from Allah, and sometimes the wind can actually be a test from Allah as well. So we gotta do the best as we can with this, and ask Allah for refuge as well. So seek refuge with Allah from harms, the dangers of the weather as well, especially when it's very windy and someone can get hurt very easily. So anyway, without any further ado, right, let me answer some of you guys' questions. So some of you guys got questions, and you can post your questions inshallah, and I'll answer some of them. So let me just check out. Oh, you got the highest marks in maths test, mashallah. Allahu Akbar. Yeah, look at that, bro. I told you, school is good. Going to school is good. It's a good thing. Yeah, and you got the highest marks. Alright, so wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So here's some questions for you guys now. So you guys can all hear, yeah? Sounds coming clear, or shall I raise the sound, lower the sound? So first question, two questions someone has. Do injections break the fast? So there's a difference of opinion regarding injections breaking the fast. However, I would say they don't break the fast. This is the opinion of many of my teachers. Injections don't break the fast unless the injections are being taken to nourish yourself. Yeah, if it's like a glucose injection or something like that. Can you pray for me? I have a soccer game. May Allah make it easy for you. Guys, everyone make dua. Do injections break the fast? So that answer is no, doesn't. What about blood tests? No, blood tests don't break the fast as well. Okay, so blood tests, injections don't break your fast. Okay, next question. What would it be permissible to hold a fundraising event, family fun day in the masjid premises, which is open to both men and women, in which there is no segregation? I mean, it depends. The thing you always have to remember is that when you have, these kind of days where you have men and women, it's very important for the organizers to make sure that it isn't going to become, an opportunity for, people to do something which goes against the laws of Allah Ta'ala. So what I would say is that if it's some kind of thing where there are clear sort of like separations, meaning that people know that they're not going to be messing around with each other and it's not going to lead to something which is wrong, then it's fine. Like in the public, when you go shops, you go as to Tesco, there's people there, men, women, they would do their shopping, but people treat themselves as professionally. So I would say if it's in the masjid premises, you should be extra cautious. People should be cautious as well. So there should be some sort of like limits there. People should have some understanding of the limits. Otherwise, I would speak to the masjid committee about that. Right? I mean, generally, these kind of things should be avoided. If it's gonna fun day is usually gonna have, I don't know, depends what you're gonna have in the fun day. But if it's gonna lead to something which is wrong, then it's best to avoid these kind of things. Okay, so let's check on here. What if the blood test leads to weakness? It's fine, it won't break the fast. I mean, if it leads to weakness, then they should try to avoid it, but it won't break fast. Wa alaikum assalam, crypto. Okay, wa alaikum assalam, Doc Saber 2. During Ramadan, when you might not be able to attend classes, do you recommend reading the study Quran to increase our understanding? I haven't seen the study Quran. I've heard that the translation is very good. I haven't seen it, so I won't be able to comment on that. But read translation of the Quran. Try to read as much as the Quran in the month of Ramadan as possible and try to understand it as much as possible. Use the opportunity. Okay, for a traveler to not fast during Ramadan, is it essential that he becomes a traveler before dawn? What if your flight is a bit later on in the fast? I mean, according to many of the scholars, they say that the rule is only if you are a traveler. So the fasting is only if you are a traveler. However, what I would say is that if you are not a traveler, then don't fast. If you are not a traveler and you know that your travel is going to make you weak, then don't fast, because there are many scholars who do allow that as well. So it depends what kind of journey it is. If it's like a short journey from, let's say, Birmingham to London, then I would say, you fast, because it's just going to be easy. It's not going to be difficult. But if you think it's going to be a journey, then you can take that opinion. Especially if it's a flight and you're going to travel somewhere far and it's a lot of difficulty and burden as well. Okay, I have maths junior tournament on Tuesday, and if I do good, I might get to go to New York or Beijing. Please make dua for me. Inshallah, the fun, may Allah make it easy for you. May you pass your exams and go to New York and Beijing. And even if you don't pass, don't worry. May you go to New York and Beijing anyway. Can you brush your teeth during the fast with toothpaste? Yes, you can brush your teeth with toothpaste. Just make sure you don't swallow the toothpaste. That's the rule. Okay, Ajizin. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. How can I know if fasting is affecting my breastfeeding baby? Jazakallah khair. I mean, basically, if a mother feels as though that if I fast, it's not going to produce enough milk for the child, then she doesn't have to fast. So she feels that she's not going to produce enough milk for that. What I would do is just kind of maybe ask the doctor, your local, your normal doctor, and get a second opinion as well. Right? But if a woman really feels that it's going to affect, then she doesn't have to fast. Right? However, if she feels maybe that she can provide another form of milk, maybe she sometimes uses breast milk, sometimes she uses powdered milk, then it might be a good idea to fast. Okay. Let's look at another question. Assalamu alaikum. Just a quick question. Have scholars mentioned anything about the aura of women in front of women who are lesbians? Are we to treat them as men because of their desires, and would it be okay to be alone with them? The general rule is that when a person is in front of the same gender, then the aura is there's leniency in the aura. So men in front of men, women in front of women. However, if ever there is desire, sexual desire, then that person should abstain and cover as much as possible. That's even if men in front of men, women in front of women. So that's the rule. So being alone with them is fine. There's no issue. The rule of the thumb is if there is a strong possibility of fitna, that something bad is going to occur, there's a high chance of something bad occurring, then a person should use the common sense and shouldn't be alone with that person. or shouldn't be looking at certain parts of the body. Okay, can you chew gum during Ramadan? You should avoid it. No, you should not chew gum. Okay, Ustad, what is the hukam of someone refusing head covering? Is it fard? From which source is it taken? Yeah, so the covering of the head, you mean for the woman? Is it referring to the covering of the head of the woman? Dark Saber 2, is it necessary that you need to get permission not to fast from a Muslim doctor, or can any doctor? It can be any doctor, as long as you explain to the doctor. The reason they say Muslim doctor is because usually a Muslim doctor knows the rules of Islam and how much scope there is. And usually a non-Muslim doctor would not know the scope. So if you can explain to your doctor how Muslims fast and the kind of difficulties that they're going to face, and what kind of timings there are, then usually they'll give you a good answer. And that's the thing, sometimes the doctor, you might tell a doctor that am I allowed to fast, and he might be a Muslim even, but he doesn't know the rules of Islam. Then he might give you a wrong answer. But if you are confident with your doctor and your doctor has said to you you shouldn't fast, then I would take the advice of the doctor. Should you wash your mouth with water during wudu, or miss the part because wudu has because it is hard to tell whether water is reaching the throat. Yeah, so you can do wudu, but don't gargle it. Yeah, you put water in your mouth, spit it out. Even if there's residue left in your mouth, traces of water, it's fine. Even if you swallow it, won't break your fast. As long as you spat out most of it, you spat it out. What's your opinion on naskh tilawa wa baqiya al-hukm? Okay, so naskh tilawa and baqiya al-hukm. So this is a bit of an advanced topic. So for those of you guys who study usul, naskh tilawa, there's a concept in Islam, in usul, which is that certain things were legislated in the beginning of Islam, and then later on they were abrogated. Right? So like in the beginning of Islam, there were certain rulings like getting up for tahajjud maybe, or maybe some of them mention things like the number of people that are needed to fight against the enemy before they can retract and run away. So there are certain rules that were told in the beginning of Islam, Sahaba, and then later on there were some rules that were changed. So this changing of ruling, some call it abrogation, some call it takhsis, right? So it's a big topic. So one of the things is where a verse of the Quran was abrogated, however the ruling remains in fiqh, right? So sometimes there might be something in the Quran. This is a very a very deep topic, a very intricate one as well, because it goes into the idea of what was considered to be as part of the Quran in the early days, and then the terminology that was used. So for example, like sometimes the early days the Sahaba would say this is part of the Quran, but it wasn't necessarily part of the Quran. Saying it's part of the Quran meant it's part of Islam, right? So they would kind of loosely use this idea of something being part of the Quran as in this is part of Islam, right? So this is why sometimes you get some du'as even that they would say this used to be part of the Quran, as in this used to be something part of Islam, they'll say, right? So this is why this is a very intricate topic. So yeah, I think naskh tilawa baqi al-hukm, this is something which is established, but there are many examples that are given for this, but are not necessarily naskh tilawa and baqa al-hukm. Wa alaikum assalam. Ustad, what does the rule al-hadf yu'nisu bil-hadf mean? I've seen it quite a lot. Al-hadf yu'nisu bil-hadf. Yeah, I'm not sure what the context is, but hadf yu'nisu bil-hadf literally means deleting something or removal of something. It it gives some sort of appropriateness or some sort of comfort of something else being removed. So in other words, when something is removed, you remove something else with it as well, like it fits in. So if you have a sentence, for instance, and let's say if I contract my words and I say to you can't instead of cannot, it makes more sense that in other parts of that sentence I contract some words as well. I say things like shouldn't, right, or it's instead of it is. So hadaf yu'nisu bil hadaf in that case. I think that's what you're talking about. And otherwise I'll have to see the general kind of statement of where that is found. Okay, yes, for the women, head covering. Yeah, head covering is considered to be necessary according to all the madhabs. And this is from the Quran, first of all, where Allah says tell the women to draw their khumur. Khumur, khimar, it means a head covering. itself. The word khimar means a head covering. So the Quran already tells them to cover the head because it's using the word khimar. Yeah, draw their khimars over their bosoms. So drawing the khimar over the bosoms refers to that they already know they have to cover their head. It's just the extra covering up the necks and the chest, the area. So that's from the Quran and the Prophet ﷺ narrations, as well as many narrations. And it was like a ijma kind of thing that the women would do. It was known, right? And this is where, I would say, this is where there is like a big issue where some people, when they look at Islam as being a purely textual religion, right, they just look at text. They don't look at the practice of Sahaba. They don't look at practice of early people. Then they create a different form of Islam, right? A very like worded form of Islam that follows specific type of wordings. And this isn't natural because Islam was there even before narrations, right? Islam was being practiced by Sahaba even before narrations. Now let's say, for example, like there were 1,000 Sahaba, for instance. There's more than that. And they were all practicing Islam and praying, and they learnt it all from the Prophet ﷺ, and they learnt it from each other. And now they don't really have, they never learned their religion from narrations. But what began to happen was people began to pass down narrations to other people. And so when they began to pass down these narrations, what began to happen was the narrations themselves, they weren't meant to be a means of learning your religion only. The religion was supposed to be learnt through the practice. And then those narrations became a means of preserving certain types of narrations. So this is why it's a very kind of a later thing where people are just taking, when we say I follow Quran and Sunnah, I follow Quran and Hadith text, that was a later thing. It wasn't the early thing. The early scholars like the Hanafis and the Malikis, they were very into the practice of the people Sahaba. They were very much into that. And Tirmidhi, like if you want to know more about this, then study Sunan Tirmidhi, and you'll find many times he'll say this hadith is weak with this particular chain. However, the practice of Sahaba was like this, right? So even though the hadith being weak, but the Sahaba used to practice this because the chain's weakness, it actually came later on. But it's established that Sahaba would do this anyway. Yeah, so this is like one of those kind of examples of this. So this is like the head covering and women being allowed to lead salat for men. These kind of things that people now say, oh, well, let's look at the text. But in reality, it's you've got to look at other things as well. Alright, wa alaikum assalam. What are your tips on studying Sharh Ma'ani al-Athar? I'm really struggling with this book. Okay, so Sharh Ma'ani al-Athar is a famous book that's written by Imam Tahawi. Imam Tahawi was a scholar in the 300s after the Hijrah. So basically, the way that he's written the book is called Sharh Ma'ani al-Athar. Athar means narrations. And so he's trying to kind of reconcile between narrations. He's written this one book, and he's written another book as well, which is very good, called Sharh Mushkilat al-Athar. Mushkilat al-Athar. Or Mushkilat al-Hadith. And that is kind of trying to reconcile between very difficult kind of types of narrations to try and reconcile. So Sharh Ma'ani al-Athar is the easier one. So what he basically does is, what you need to do is you need to kind of read through all of it. And this is what I would do. And I would just kind of like make a note of what type of hadith are being mentioned for the one party and what the other party, what kind of hadith they have. And then try to see which hadith are being given preference over the other. And then the most important thing in Sharh Ma'ani al-Athar is the nazar. Like, what is the specific thing that Imam Tahawi is like the rationale that he's bringing to kind of wrap it all up. That's how I approach it. Yeah, so the main thing in Sharh Ma'ani al-Athar is you want to kind of see how Imam Tahawi is approaching this topic. That's what you want to see. Right, so I hope that makes sense, Omar. Is that what you're asking? Okay, Crypto M, if you go over the time limit of suhoor by 1 or 2 minutes according to the timetable you are following, does this mean you have broken your fast? You know what? If it's 1 or 2 minutes or a few minutes, I would say it's okay. Yeah, I wouldn't be too strict on that. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Ustaz, please tell us that when you taught your very first class, where, how was it, how old were you, etc. Okay, so when I taught my very first, basically, I don't know what it's like in this country, in England. Where I teach, maybe it's not this, but where I studied in Pakistan. So every time we used to learn something in the evening, we used to go over it. So we used to have something called takrar. right, which was like revision. And takrar basically is where you kind of you have one guy who's the main guy who's understood the lesson properly and made notes on it, and then everyone else sits around him and he just kind of recaps what the teacher talked about, and then the students discuss it amongst themselves. So they have like a kind of mudhakara. Yeah, they kind of go over it. They can kind of debate the issue as well. So I started that. If you mean by that teaching, I actually started that in my early years when I was learning. I mean, I started giving talks in mosques even from the beginning when I was in the first, second, third year when I gave my first talk in the local mosque in Jummah. But yeah, I mean, I just got used to it then. So then the thing is, if you were good at giving takrar, if you were good at kind of teaching the rest of the class, then what would happen is people would come to your gatherings, your circles in the evening, and they would sit in your circles, yeah, because you know they'd probably feel more comfortable with you being able to explain it. So yeah, I would just do that. So you know, but the proper teaching, I actually started proper teaching, like hardcore, like official teaching, was because my teachers told me to teach. They used to appoint me teaching certain people when I was teaching anyway, on the side. But proper teaching was like when I graduated 2009, and yeah, that was when I properly started to teach, and I taught spoken Arabic, and I taught Quduri, I think it was, and I taught kids maktab. Yeah, that was when I first. And the thing about teaching is you have to break yourself into it. It's not something that you're going to be able to do overnight. It's a skill, it's an art that you have to learn. You know, the main thing, if you want to become a good teacher, the thing you have to do is make your lesson according to the students. Yeah, make your lesson so that students understand it. Like, don't try to make your lesson to show the students how much you know. If you try to make your lessons in such a way that you want to mention everything that you can just to impress the students, you're not going to get very far. Like, if you don't know something, just tell your students you don't know that thing. But try to make the lesson so easy, right? Our teacher used to say, try to make the lesson so easy that even like a child would be able to understand your lesson. And that's something I found. If I can explain a lesson to someone in very easy words, that means I feel I've understood it properly, right? If I can like really, and one of the things I was very well known for in madrasa, you can ask the guys in my class, I was known as the khulasa guy. And what I would do is every lesson, I would summarize every lesson. And then the next day, when the teacher would ask, what did we study yesterday? I would have like a summary of the main lessons. So everyone would copy them from me. They like photocopy and copy off me and say, what was the khulasa, what was the summary? So get used to summarizing things and being able to explain a difficult concept in an easy way, in your own words. And if you can do that, that means you've understood it. And if you've understood it, most likely you're going to get your students to be able to understand it as well. Hope that answers the question. Okay, so next question. Anas Shah, I'll send a picture of the rule on your email stars. The context can be okay. Send it, inshallah. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, what responsibility do Islamic stepfathers have towards their stepchildren? I mean, there's nothing like, you know, when we talk about like rights and these kind of things. In Islam, we don't have like defined rights for every little single thing. Generally, the rights of the stepfather would be like the same as the father, right? Which is to give them a good upbringing, provide for the children, right? Give them a good, role model, moral support as well. Yeah, that's what I would say would be the main kind of aspects. And normally what's supposed to happen, the father is supposed to be bringing up the children, the biological father. Now, if there is no biological father in the scene, then obviously the stepfather, and he'd be getting lots of reward for this as well. Have you heard, and the thing about rights is generally to do with courts. So if there's Islamic courts, that's when rights really make sense. If you don't have Islamic courts, then rights don't really make sense. Yeah, because they're just very abstract. They don't have any sort of implications in the real world, except in the Day of Judgment, obviously. Okay, have you, Ibrahim, alhamdulillah, have you heard of Muhammad Rashid? He talks about tasting classical Arabic food. Muhammad Rashid. What's his full name? Muhammad Rashid. There's quite a few Muhammad Rashids. Okay, crypto. You mentioned toothpaste and washing your mouth with water is permissible, but how strict is the rule about water entering the throat because I am always anxious about. Yeah, so watering into the throat does not break your fast. If it goes down your throat, then it'll break your fast, right? If you're unsure if water has gone down your throat, remember your fast hasn't broken. If you're in doubt, right, then the rule is then it's fine. So just remember that as a rule of the thumb. But yeah, if you have a taste in your mouth, that doesn't break your fast. So if you were to, let's say, use seawater and you gargled the seawater, not gargled, you wash your mouth out with seawater and you had that kind of salty taste in your mouth, residue, it doesn't break your fast. Yeah, so I wouldn't. The thing is, just wash your mouth out. If you can brush your teeth lightly. Try not to go too deep and keep spitting out. Okay, Umar, jazakallah khair. Alhamdulillah. Okay, jazakallah khair. Refusing to headscarf would take a, now it wouldn't necessarily, for a woman to refuse to wear a headscarf wouldn't necessarily take a person out of Islam. So remember, taking a person out of Islam is a very, very, very serious thing. So it can only be established by something which is very, very absolutely categorical, right? Not everything, not reject. Like, the reason we're Muslim is because we believe certain things which have been given to us by the Prophet ﷺ, by Allah. That's what makes us Muslim. So, and those things are things which are like things of the unseen, basically. So things of the unseen bring us into Islam, and things of the unseen take us out of Islam. Like believing that the Prophet ﷺ is a prophet is something of the unseen, right? Like, why is he the prophet? Like, it's beyond, obviously, us. It's something that Allah has commanded us, and the Quran being from Allah is the unseen, etc. So if a person, for example, like, doesn't believe Medina was where the Prophet ﷺ lived, he won't go out of Islam, right? But the thing you have to remember is it has to be something which is related to something to do with, like, categorically part of Islam. Yeah, and there are very strict rules on this, and I would advise, if you want to read more about this, and I don't know if it's been translated, it's Takfeer Ahli Shahadatain by Sheikh Hatim Al-Oni, right, which is a very nice book, very contemporary book, and very nicely explained, where we don't want, it's not about a person just like leaving this or leaving this in Islam and then they're out of Islam. No, it has to be something which is very categorical about leaving Islam, right? So very categorical about leaving Islam. So therefore, I wouldn't say the head covering. It depends exactly what they're kind of trying to say about that. If they don't want to wear it, that's up to them. If a person wants to eat pork, or person wants to drink alcohol, that's up to them. But they'll be sinful because they're going against the. But if a person believes pork is not part of Islam or alcohol is not part of Islam, right, then they would be out of Islam, right? Because that's something very, very clear and categorical, right? So the issue of the headscarf wouldn't come under that kind of a ruling. Although a person, I would say, would be very sinful for deliberately not obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if you're really interested in issues that can bring a person into Islam and out of Islam, then I would advise reading that kind of a book. Okay, and nowadays, it's just a very kind of easy thing nowadays on social media. You just call anyone a kafir, that this guy's in Islam, this guy's out of Islam. Very, very easy to kind of go around just labeling everyone, and that isn't the way, like, people should be categorized. It has to be something very categorical, which is known to be part of Islam. Min daruriyat ad-din ma ulima min ad-din min darura, something which is categorically understood as a necessary part of Islam. Okay. Next, Adil wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. If you get hit in your mouth and your gums bleed and you swallow some blood, does your fast break? Okay, I would say in that kind of situation, if that has happened, then I would say no. If it wasn't something that was deliberate by you, if it was just something being hit and accidentally went in the mouth, no, I would say you'd be okay for that. Okay, in Pakistan, when it rains, it's truly a blessing. It's the opposite here. So can we understand the hadith here talks about rain as a blessing being specific to a certain area? Would sunshine be a blessing here? Yeah, definitely sunshine will be a blessing. The thing to remember about the bounties of Allah is, look, Allah has created a universe. He's created a system, and this system works according to certain laws and principles. So water goes up in the air, evaporation and then precipitation, then water comes down. Sometimes a lot of water goes up, sometimes less water goes up, sometimes it's drought, sometimes it's very heavy floods, sometimes it's light winds, sometimes it's heavy winds, sometimes extremely cold, sometimes it's very hot, sometimes it's average. This is how the world, Allah has designed the world, right? And these things will happen. We can't avoid these. So we call these kind of things tests from Allah, right? That living within in these changing sort of circumstances, we call them, these are tests from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if it kind of helps you, makes it easier for you to live your life, we say this is a blessing from Allah. And if it's something which really makes it difficult for you to live your life, we say this is a test from Allah as well. Yeah. So one is a blessing from Allah, and one is a test. So for some people, even light winds might be a test from Allah. Yeah. Hot weather might be a test from Allah. And cool weather might be a test from Allah. So it all depends on situations as well. Okay. Can you please explain the ruling regarding wearing clothes with pictures on them? There are so different opinions on there. Okay, so wearing clothing with pictures. According to the Hanafis, if the image is very big, that if a person was to stand from a distance and sees and it looks like they're holding idols, then this kind of clothing should not be worn in Salat. Yeah, a person should avoid wearing these kind of clothes. And I would say if it's for like kids' clothes, I would say for kids' clothes it's okay, because the Hanafis say that images which are wrong are those images which are used to venerate or honor the image itself. So people wearing images don't really honor the image in reality. They're not really honoring it. And that's why the Hanafis say that if you had a mat on the floor that had images all over it, it's fine, you can pray in that room, right? It wouldn't be a problem, as long as you don't do sajda on the images. And the simple reason is because the images is a thing which has a reason for why Allah has prohibited it. We don't just say any image. So some Sahaba, like they say, used to have rings with insects on there, certain insects like mosquitoes, like Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu had, or you have coins with the image and stuff like that. So that's why the images that are prohibited are those images are big, very visible, clear, the clear features, and it looks as though it's an idol that's being venerated and honored. Yeah. So if a person had clothing, I would say if a person like had, some ladies might have, like a clothing that has some animal images on there, but you can't tell the animal images unless you come very close, and then you can tell. Yeah, otherwise you can't tell. I would say that's okay. And the main thing is, like when it comes to, for example, like understanding fiqh, understanding Allah's law, it's based upon reasons. So there's reasons behind Allah's law, and that's why the Hanafi fiqh, if you've studied, anyone studied it, you know that they always, after every ruling, they're always kind of like trying to point out, like for example, the reason why this is wrong is because this is the reason. The reason why this is wrong is this is the reason. They always have an underlying or an underpinning reason for it. Right. So this is why, that's what I would say. Especially when we're living in a society, a culture now where images are prevalent now, right? They're not used in the same way that images were used in the past. In the past, images were very rare. Images were used for a specific type of reason. But nowadays it's like everyone's taking images. Images are everywhere. You go to a shop, there's images everywhere. You buy something from a shop, you have images on it. So the whole kind of culture of images is changed now. Reason why people take images. Okay. Okay. Crypto. Yakum jazakumullah khair. Okay. If a person becomes an apostate, does his nikah become null and void immediately? So there's the whole details for this. If a person becomes apostate, then what happens to their marriage? This requires a lot of explanation. It's not a very straightforward sort of an answer. But if a person does become, then generally what happens is the fuqaha say that if the husband becomes apostate, what will happen is then Islam will be presented to him, obviously, and his nikah would become void. But if the wife becomes apostate, then what happens is then it depends where they are in the world as well. If they're in Dar al-Harb, or if they're in like a non-Muslim country, in a Muslim country. So there's lots of details for this. Okay, I don't know his full name, but he's Egyptian who extensively studied Arabic literature. He talks about the importance of understanding Arabic culture. Okay, if you're talking about the same guy, I think you're talking about Abu Qais. Abu Qais Rashid. I think it's him. Abdul Rashid. Yeah, Abu Qais Abdul Rashid. I think it's that one you're talking about. If it's him, yeah, he's excellent. Try to listen to his talks, and anytime opportunity I get, I try to listen to his lectures as well. Very, very good. Is the reason Allah आपको उम्र तवील बरकत अदा फरमाइए आमीन जज़ाकुमुल्लाह खैर वासिक आमीन आमीन और आपको भी. Is Ibrahim, is reason important to faith? As in, do you think that someone has to believe in God based on reason instead of just being told to? Yeah, I mean, if someone believes in Islam, like they're brought up and they don't know the reasons why they believe in Islam, they just believe in Islam because, and a lot of people in the world are like that. They believe in Islam because it's like kind of culturally they believe in Islam. As long as they believe in Islam, we treat them as Muslim, even if they don't know why they believe in Islam, but they just believe that we have to do it like this, and there's a God, and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is his messenger, and we will go for Hajj in Mecca, and we fast every Ramadan, and we should pray our salat. Then this person will be treated as a Muslim. However, obviously, understanding Allah and understanding the reasons is a very higher form of faith. Right? A person should try and understand as much as possible. That's why Allah sent the Quran down, so that our faith is based upon understanding. Okay, Jazakallah khair, you're welcome. Wa iyyakum. Crypto, does your salah get affected if you look at and read the words during the salah? No, it doesn't. It won't become affected just by if you were praying and you saw some writing on the wall, or you saw like a Quran that's lying in front of you and you could read it. Yeah, it wouldn't become nullified. The scholars do debate this issue of like reading the Quran whilst in salat. Hanafis, like Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, says no, your salat will become nullified, and according to his students, they say it won't become nullified, but it's highly disliked, extremely disliked. Okay. Yeah, so for example, brand names, logo, if you look at them, try to avoid looking at these things. In salat, remember, your concentration should be on honoring Allah. So you look down, you try to honor Allah as much as possible. Okay. And that actually reminds me of a question, a recent post I put up on Facebook, and a lot of people asked the question of, can you make dua in like another language? So let me just explain this here, so for the you guys who are a bit confused. According to the Hanafis, a question is raised, which is, can you read your salat in a different language, like Persian, or in our days today, English? So can you read the entire salat in English? They actually had this debate, right? Abu Hanifa rahimahullah was on the opinion, yes, you can. Yeah, in other words, you can read your entire salat, even if you know Arabic, you can read it in your local language, in Farsi, basically. So you can say, instead of Allahu Akbar, you can say Allahu Akbar, meaning Allah is great, and then you can just start off, Subhanakallahumma, glory be to Allah, and Bismillah, in the name of Allah, most merciful, most beneficent, all praise to Allah, Lord of the worlds, most merciful, most beneficent, owner of the day of judgment, etc., etc., etc. Right? He says you can do that, and his argument that they bring, is that the thing is, you have to read Quran. So if you are reading a translation of the Quran, you are still reading Quran. He says, in that sense, you're still reading translation of the Quran, and because you're still reading a translation of the Quran, you're fulfilling what Allah is saying. And on top of that, some of the arguments that are used for him is that a person would have more concentration when they are reading the salat in their own language, especially if they don't know the intricacies, the balagha and the intricacies of Arabic, right? They won't be able to benefit that much. So this is one of the things that he says. That's about recitation, that is. His two students, Abu Yusuf and Abu Muhammad, they're against this. They say, no, you cannot. You have to do in Arabic. We've never heard the Prophet ﷺ or Sahaba, leading salat or praying salat in a different language than Arabic. You got to stick to how they done it, and that's how it should always be. But they all agree that if a person doesn't know Arabic, is like new to Muslim or new to practicing, he can read his salat in his own local language. Yeah, everyone agrees that's allowed. But then the question is, what about du'as and dhikr, like in sujood and ruku, tashahhud, etc. And dua, what about that? So Abu Hanifa still has the same argument there. Even though Abu Hanifa's first issue regarding the recitation, the Quran recitation, they say he retracted that opinion and left it, and took the opinion of his two students later on in his life. But he hasn't retracted the opinion regarding other parts of salat, and likewise Jummah khutbah. So he says Jummah khutbah can be done in your local language, yeah, because the aim of the khutbah is obviously to to understand it. Adhan, slaughtering, all these can be done in your local language. So this is why when I put that post up and the guy was asking, as long as you are reciting those translations of those words, then this is considered to be fine. Okay. However, you should try to stick to the Arabic as much as possible, the Hanafis say. Yeah. And also, when it comes to these kind of du'as, the Hanafis do have this. The Hanafis all agree that if you were to speak your local language in Salat, as long as you're not speaking like a conversation with another human, as long as you're not using words that you would normally say in a conversation with another human, then your Salat won't become nullified. Right? So, for example, like if I was praying my Salat and in the middle I was Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, Ya Allah, I love you so much, Ya Allah, I want to go to Jannah, Ya Allah, give me. If you were to say something like that, Hanafis say your Salat won't become nullified. Generally, they say that. Right? But if I was to say something like this, Ya Allah, I hope I find my keys to my, my car, right? So that will nullify your Salat, because that's the kind of thing you normally say, and it's a conversation, it's kalamun nas, right? That will nullify your Salat. So that's why I said, for those of you guys who asked me a question, that try to keep the du'as that you say, if you're going to do it, try to do it only in nafal, and then try to keep it like around the themes of the du'as that are found in the Quran and in the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. And that's it basically. Okay, so Adil, what if a person has a gum problem and their gums bleed very easily even while using miswak? Yeah, in that kind of situation, I would say it's fine. Yeah, I would say it's fine. That's it. Does your salat break if you cough in salat? No, it doesn't break if you cough in salat, unless you're trying to communicate with someone. So the Hanafis have a basic rule: anything in salat that's done for rectification of salat, it won't nullify your salat. So for example, like let's say someone's walking by and you want to inform them that you're praying, that don't walk by, then if you were to kind of cough, or maybe that would be okay. But if you were to kind of just cough in salat because someone said, do you want 2 sugars or 1 sugar in your tea, and you kind of said ahem, ahem, yeah, that's communication. That would nullify your salat, right? So anything in salat which is based upon that kind of an idea, communication, then it's not allowed, right? There's a difference of opinion regarding raising your hand. If someone gives salam to you and you raise your hand, a difference of opinion there, but that's basically the ruling. Okay, Ziryab, what do you think about the Ibadiyya? Have they been unjustly maligned as Khawarij? I don't really know about Ibadiyya. I'm not really specialized in that kind of field of different firqas and groups, so I wouldn't be the best person to ask. So it might be best to ask someone else on that. Because the thing is, when people ask me questions, like if someone says to me, what's the ruling regarding this particular group, I would have to study that group properly. Like I'd have to do a master's degree or a PhD level, and only then, right, would I be comfortable in coming out with some sort of a judgment. And if a person just reads 1 or 2 articles and says Ibadiyya say this, what do you believe about them, or so and so say this, or so and so say this, I think it's very unfair, very unjust. The same thing if they did it against us, just based on a few articles that they read about us, I think we would say the same thing as well. We would say, at least listen to our side of it, right? So I think it's very unfair that people go around labeling other people without full thorough investigation. Do thorough investigation, check out all the facts, check out what they have to say, and then after that, if you want to come out with some sort of a conclusion or some sort of decision, then go for it if you feel that you're comfortable. But just because you've heard second hand from someone, or third hand, that they pray like this, or that they their fiqh is like this, or certain beliefs they have are like this, and then you just give a judgment, I think that's unfair. That's my own take on that. So I wouldn't be able to answer that properly. Okay, people, and the thing I always say to you guys is, remember, any scholar, any Maulana, any Sheikh, any Mufti who answers everyone's questions, who has an answer for every single thing that you ask them, right? I would say that be very careful of them, because there is no scholar in the world today that knows every single answer for everything, right? And I know people who are specialized in one field and they are excellent in that field, but when it comes to another field of Islam, right, they're called muftis in a certain field, but when it comes to another chapter in Islam, right, they're not very good at it. And simply because they haven't worked out all the nuances in there. They haven't worked out all the details. Okay. People who lead public lives, like politicians, if they're corrupt financially, would it be considered backbiting if we talk about them? Okay, so if someone does something openly that's wrong, that becomes openly, like for example, it's been found about Nawaz Sharif, about his Panama issue, right? If it's found openly, then that doesn't fall under backbiting anymore. Like the rules of backbiting drop from that. So if someone openly does something, openly drinks alcohol in the street, and you say to someone else he drinks alcohol in the street, then it doesn't fall under backbiting anymore, right? Because backbiting is something where it's like a person it stains them, or it taints their image, and they already tainted their image by publicly disobeying Allah. Then it doesn't fall under anymore. Okay, Adil, you're welcome. Okay, is it okay to watch shows like Ertugal? It's a huge debate on MT. I don't know what MT is. Okay, so is it okay to watch Ertugal? The thing when it comes to these kind of issues about watching TV, the ruling is that anything on TV which is going to be clearly wrong, you just make a judgment yourself. If you feel that watching it's got nudity in there, it's got things that are very, very vulgar and wrong, then you shouldn't be watching that at all, right? You shouldn't be making any excuses for anyone, because it goes against the whole ethos of a Muslim. Yeah, so ethos of a Muslim is that a person should always try to abstain from things which are dubious, right? So that's the general rule. So I haven't watched Urtugal. I don't know what happens in there, so I wouldn't really be able to say, but just generally, that's a general kind of rule of the thumb to keep in mind, right? And there are obviously things out there which people are doubtful. So I'm not really a good debater. When people try to debate me on social media, I'm not really good at debating. Yeah, I'll just go silent. I won't respond, because I'm not really into that. And if you're some people are very good at debating on social media. They can like sit there and just type and answer, and they can come up with arguments and copy and paste, and I'm not really good at that, right? I'll just say whatever I have to say, and then if some people have any follow-ups or things like that, I rarely will respond. You probably noticed that with me. Yeah, and that's why I have like sometimes backlog of emails or backlog of things I have to respond to. Okay, so let me just check out some more of these questions then that you guys have been asking. Okay, Salam, I asked if I could email you with some doubts I had. I was wondering. Oh yeah, so I did receive that email. The thing was, with regards to this email, I was actually talking to another scholar. I was going to forward the details onto another scholar, because I'm not really too clued up about the whole research on this, so I wouldn't be able to give the best answer. So try to. I'm still speaking to that scholar when he gets time, and inshallah he'll get back to you. Okay. If a male wears ripped jeans exposing his knees in salah, is his salat valid in them? So salat would not be valid here. Deliberately exposing certain parts of your body would not permit the salat. So some people nowadays have that fashion where they wear cut jeans. So in the salat, it wouldn't be valid if the areas cut were areas of aura. If a woman prays in tight clothes but is still covered, is her prayer valid? So if a woman wears tight clothes, so generally a woman should avoid showing her parts of her body outside the salat, which are not supposed to be shown. But in salat, if a woman does wear and her skin is covered, the color of her skin is covered, technically her salat will be valid. Yeah, so the ruling of salat is slightly different from public. Yeah, so technically be valid. Okay, Hamza. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. What is the Hanafi position on maslaha? Haven't contemporary fuqaha of the Hanafi madhab adopted this methodology in driving new masail that have come to light? Maslaha, I don't understand. Like how? I'm not sure what you mean by that. Maslaha, you mean masalih mursala? And give me some examples of that. I'm not sure. Okay, so some guys who work in the same place, and some of them say that fasts are too long and they don't keep the fast when working, but others who are working in the same place keep their fasts. The ones that didn't keep their fast, do they have to pay the penalty? No. Okay, so if you don't keep a fast, right? If you don't intend to keep a fast, and you eat in the day, you don't have to give the penalty. Yeah, you don't have to give the penalty. But if you do keep the fast, right, and then you break it, then you have to give the penalty, basically. How many khatams did Imam Abu Hanifa used to do in Ramadan? I have no idea. Inshallah, on the Day of Judgment, when I ask Imam Abu Hanifa, when I meet him, hopefully, I'm going to ask him, inshallah, yeah, how many khatams he done. I'm not sure. They say, I mean, some of them say that he did 60 khatams in Ramadan. I don't know. Sometimes I think about these kind of biographies people write. You know, sometimes we don't know how authentic the biographies are. So some of the information could be very accurate, authentic. Some of the information could be a bit exaggerated. So we've got to be very careful. You know, just like we're very critical when it comes to critiquing hadith chains, we've got to be very critical when careful when it comes to biographies as well. Don't take biographies too seriously, I would say. Okay, keep that. Okay, next one. Is lobster halal? Is lobster halal? I mean, it's a very kind of grey area, and like I always say, when it comes to seafood, if you're in a locality that eats seafood and you know there's scope for it, then eat it. Yeah. So if you want to eat lobster, go and eat it. Bye. According to the Hanafi fiqh, technically it wouldn't necessarily be allowed. Hanafi fiqh, lobster wouldn't be allowed. Okay, but you know, but if it's like in a place, just like prawns is a bit dubious. So do prawns and lobster fall in the same category? Yeah. So masalih mursala istihsan. We obviously do follow istihsan. But if you can give me some examples, I'm not sure I'm familiar with examples of masalih mursala in Hanafi contemporary fatwas. If you can give me some, maybe I can look into it. Fahad, wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Do you teach private one-to-one? A lot of people ask me to do I teach private one-to-one. The thing about private one-to-one is it takes up a lot of my time. But what you do is if you want to become, if you want private one-to-one lessons, if you become a patron, right, and there's a certain tier, you can get like one of the privileges of being certain level or certain tier is you can have certain private lessons. Yeah, but generally, I mean, those who know who I do teach privately, they know how busy sometimes I can get. And the thing is, I don't want to have too many people I'm teaching privately because I don't want to lower the quality of the teaching. Yeah, Omar, I agree with you, Sheikh. I take biography with a pinch of salt. Yeah, definitely. Always remember that. When the scholars were very strict about the hadith, the reason they were strict about the hadith is because they didn't want something that was not part of the deen to be part of the deen. Yeah, that's what they were careful about. And when it came to history, seerah, history, biographies, all that, they were very lenient, right? Very lenient in accepting narrations of that sort. Yeah, so yeah, that's. I mean, I don't know. Okay, what other questions are there? Okay, assalamu alaikum. Any books on dogmatism and irrational beliefs? Got to finish an assignment on this. Please reply as soon as possible. I don't know, and that's the honest truth. I don't really know. Haven't read much on that, right? So, I mean, some of the things that you can in the past books that they did have were they wrote books on things in Arabic. There's quite a few books out there on firaq. Yeah, so al-milal wa nihal. And there's Shahrastani, Abdul Karim Shahrastani has one, and also Ibn Al-Fisal fil Milal wa Nihal by Ibn Hazm, and then there's some other ones later on that scholars have come out with as well. So they were like in each era scholars were writing about the views of other religions. So I'm not too sure about, I think Oxford is an Oxford book of theology or something. I think there's some sort of a name like that. I remember a long time ago one of my friends he mentioned it. It's an Oxford book of something, I can't remember, theology, and it has lots of summarized views of other faiths. So there are some really nice looking orange books behind you with a purple and black border. Could you please tell the title? Okay, some orange books. I don't know which orange books are you talking about. Are you talking about these orange books over here? Yeah, so these, I don't know if it's this one you're talking about. Everything looks orange in this. Or is it this one at the bottom? Yeah. So which one are you referring to? If it's this one, yeah, then this one is called Mirqat al-Mafati. So this is basically, there's a book that was written, it's called Mishkat, if any of you guys have heard of it, right? So Mishkat basically was a book where there was a guy, and what he wanted to do was he wanted to write the early Hanafi, keep saying Hanafi, the early hadith books that were written in the early years, like Bukhari, Muslim, Tirmidhi, all those. This guy came later on. So what he done was he wanted to write down chapters, like chapter of Wudu, chapter of Salat, chapter of Ilm, chapter of Iman, chapter, all these different chapters. But he wanted to kind of write an encyclopedia of these early books, right? So take from each one, and then he wanted to list his own because he saw that all these books were beneficial. So he wrote this and he broke it down into 2 chapters, right? So he wrote down 2 chapters, and he would have 2 chapters, and then came along another guy, and what he done was he added a 3rd chapter, right? So the first chapter would be from like the topic of wiping over your leather socks from Bukhari and Muslim, and then second chapter, wiping over leather socks from Tirmidhi, Abu Dawood, Ibn Majah, and then the 3rd chapter would be the same thing but from other books, miscellaneous books. So he wanted to make this kind of sequence. So this book was eventually called Mishkat al-Masabih. Mishkat al-Masabih. So now Mishkat al-Masabih is basically like a very important book that's studied in Dars Nizami because it covers a lot of the content of the major books of hadith. So then Mullah Ali Qari came along, right, and he decided to do a commentary on it and explain Mishkat, right, in as much detail as possible. So his commentary is about 13 volumes, I think. Is it 13? 12 volumes, yeah, 12 volumes. 12 volumes, basically, he commentates on it, and that's what the commentary of Mishkat is. I mean, it's a very good, if you just want to understand the hadith and just a few benefits of the hadith, that's all. He doesn't go into too much detail. And at the moment, I'm working at Sharh Qatr and Nada, as you guys know. Those who are patrons, they're getting, access to those. And also Mantiq, I've done a few Mantiq ones. So I'm going to get them edited soon, inshallah. And patrons are going to get access to those as well, inshallah. And the third one I'm going to be doing is Usul Hadith. So when I do Usul Hadith, I'm going to do it in levels. So beginner, intermediate, advanced. And I'll be mentioning one section in there on the history of the Hadith books. And I'll be mentioning a small little explanation for each hadith book, synopsis, and that will give a good understanding of generally how usul hadith works, what the history of hadith books are, which books are taken, which books are not taken, and etc. Yeah, so inshallah, I'm planning that at the moment, so that's being jotted down. I make dua inshallah that Allah makes it easy for me as well. Okay, how does a person become Hanafi, especially these days? Knowledge is global and people do not live in geographical pockets anymore. Does a student have to follow the teacher in their madhab? Okay, it's a very good question, that is. Basically, the whole point of a madhab in the past was, because remember, there was a time, like for example, imagine like, I don't know if you guys can see, right? I don't know, go off the screen. So imagine like, for example, let's start from this side. This is the time of the Prophet ﷺ. The whole aim of Islam is for you to follow Allah's teachings. That is the whole point of Islam. You follow Allah's teachings. Anyone from the time of the Prophet ﷺ all the way until the Day of Judgment, anyone who follows Islam, follows the teachings of Allah, through the Prophet ﷺ, this person is successful. Right? We all believe that. So now what happened was basically these teachings, they're not as black and white as you think. Right? Some of them are very clear. Most of them are very clear. Right? We have to pray 5 times a day. We fast and we do this. But there's so many things in there which we don't have a clear answer for. Like, you need to have a very good training in these areas, in this kind of Islam, and this what we call Sharia, to be able to answer people's questions. So you need experts for that. So slowly, as the years went by, what used to happen is people who didn't really have a good understanding would go to an expert and ask the expert and say to the expert, right, I don't understand this. What's the answer to this? If this happens to me, what's the answer? Just like, if your car breaks down, you go to a mechanic and whatever he tells you, you rely upon him, right? Or you go to a doctor and you got some pain in your body and the doctor says, right, take this, you rely upon them. So people decided, look, this is easier for us to do. If we go to an expert and we ask this expert and this expert gives us an answer, this is better than us, cowboy style, trying to understand the Sharia ourselves. So slowly this became more like kind of formalized, right? And when it became formalized, they started to call them like schools. So people just say to you like, oh, what school do you follow? So this school now, what used to happen was the government saw this, Islamic governments in the early years, and they decided, why don't we kind of set up a judiciary system based upon one of these schools? They're very thorough, they've covered the issues, they have very good rigorous methodology. Why don't we apply those? So the judges had to be trained in a certain school, like a certain type of approach. So some countries were like Maliki, some countries were Shafi, some countries were Layth ibn Sa'ad, some countries were Abdurrahman al-Awza'i. It all depended on who the Qadi was, the judge was. So they had like a uniform law that they would follow in that particular region that was based upon the teachings of that particular Qadi judge. So this is why the madhab was very important. The madhab was there mainly to keep peace in the community, right? Just keep this. So that's why people were told that they have to follow this madhab, because it's like in this country, imagine there was like 10 opinions about stopping at red lights. You're going to have accidents. So there's like one opinion now. You have to stop at red lights, right? You can't park on double yellow lines. You can't do this. You got to do this. You got to drive on the left hand side of the road in England. So when this came, right, when these issues came along, right, and later on, as people, I think in history, people felt they had to affiliate themselves to one school. So you had these scholars who were pushing that, look, you got to stick to one, because otherwise, if you don't stick to one school, you're gonna following anything. So scholars became very strict on that. And then other scholars said, well, look, as long as you're following someone who's upright and someone who knows their stuff, then you're fine, right? So you had these two kind of approaches nowadays. So this is why this issue, like you asked this question, yes, the world has become global. And if you read, for example, like issues related to finance, Mufti Taqi Usmani, who's a very well-known scholar in the world, he's got a book called Fiqhul Buyu. I've actually got it here, somewhere around here. And it's 2 volumes, and basically in there, in nearly every other page, he gives the opinion on a different madhab, and he says, this is for ease, this is for ease. So he knows that the world economy is not going, it cannot be designed around the Hanafi school. It can't be. It's very difficult. So in many places, you have to take from other madhabs, right? It's more practical to take from other madhabs than to just restrict yourself to one way. Otherwise, it's going to make life extremely difficult for. Right? So yeah, definitely. But this is like a very a big topic, and maybe it requires me making a series of videos to explain this idea of taqleed, following a madhab. And I was actually, many of you guys know the evolution of fiqh, a series I've done. So I've actually writing a book, when I stopped since about 4 years now, 4 or 5 years. But it was a series from the fiqh that was in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, the fiqh that was in the time of the Sahaba, fiqh that was in the time of the Khulafa, meaning Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, Ali radiallahu anhum, the fiqh that was in the time of Tabi'in, the fiqh that was in the time, so I'm in the stage now, the fiqh that's in the time of the Tabi'in, the madhabs, the 4 madhabs. So it's like a whole series I've done. It's not available on YouTube, but I've done it, I've given lectures on it, full day courses on it. And this is a lot of what I'm trying to show, is how there was this change, this evolution, you can say, of how fiqh was seen and how people used to understand Islam. Okay, I hope that answers the question. Okay, what do I teach? What do you teach? I teach all sorts of things, right? Yeah, a whole list of things. Arabic and fiqh and hadith. And okay, what do you think about Siyar al-Maghazi literature as a means of knowing the Prophet ﷺ? Do you think it's limited to the milieu in which these works were written, Marshal, Umayyad and Abbasid? Possibly, yeah. I mean, I haven't read too much on Maghazi, but generally that's what they say. And Ahmad ibn Hanbal rahimahullah has a famous statement and says, Sira and Malahim and Tafsir are actually the weakest of sciences. He says that because it's not based upon rigorous testing. So there's a lots of leniency. There's lots of statements that may have been biased because of a person's the reporter's own personal preferences. How does one deal with the negative spiritual effects of being on social media, like egotism, vanity, etc.? Sometimes you start enjoying the sound of your own voice. Yeah, this is a big problem, and what you need to do is a sabbatical. Yeah, you need to cut yourself off social media and see how much it affects you. Yeah, cut yourself off social media for a week or so and see how you feel, right? And then if you kind of feel very bad inside, then that's a sign that you've got this bad sort of addiction that you need to get rid of. And regularly people should be doing this, and should accept criticism from other people as well. Yeah, sometimes, maybe you might ask someone, look, if I say anything wrong, please criticize me for it. And it's not a nice thing, it hurts, but sometimes it has to be done. What do you think of Taysir Mustalah al-Hadith? It's a very good book. I don't think it's the best book, but it's a very good book for a beginner to start off with. It's like I say, Usul Hadith is 10 steps. Taysir Mustalah al-Hadith covers the first 2 steps, maybe even 3 steps of your journey in Usul Hadith. Okay. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Can you answer my question? What was it? Was it the question about the what was your question? If you can repeat your question again. Is it really a problem to mix and match between madhabs? I don't really see a problem since the fiqh are all accepted. The thing with mixing and matching, this would obviously be for a person who is, the whole point of following or studying a particular school is so that you can tweak and you can research thoroughly that particular methodology. Methodology is the most important thing in a school of thought. So if you're a learner, if you're a student of knowledge and you're seeking that knowledge and you're following a particular madhab in that sense, then I would say learning about that particular madhab is very, very important. Right? Otherwise, you're going to make the religion look very unsophisticated. Yeah, just by mixing and matching, it just seems very arbitrary and just for whatever reason. However, if you're a layperson and you don't really have specialities in fiqh, then whatever scholar you ask and whatever opinion they give you, you can follow it. That's my inclination. That if you're a person who is not a person of fiqh, if you haven't studied fiqh to a good degree, then you have that scope. Okay, where did I study in Pakistan? I studied in Karachi. Yeah, in Jamia Ulum Islamiyya, Banuri Town. I studied there. Okay, let's just do a few more questions, then we finish. Okay, next question. Salam Ustad. Is Hajj valid if I do it while owing some days of Ramadan I missed due to menses? No. No, actually, yes. Hajj is valid. You don't have to make up your missed Ramadan. You have to make them up, but you don't have to make them before Hajj. Right. Obviously, try to make them up as soon as possible, ideally. Okay, next question. Is it okay to pick flowers and leave the leaves from plants and trees? Is it harming them? No, it's fine. You can pick them, totally fine. You can break a branch off a tree and you can pick a flower. They're totally fine. Nothing's wrong with it. The only place you can't do it is in Makkah. In Makkah, there's actually specific rules that are mentioned. The Prophet also mentioned about that. Ameen. Jazakumullah khair. Jazakumullah khair. You're welcome. Ameen. Jazakumullah khair, guys. So this is the kind of thing that really kind of encourages me as well. When I'm benefiting you guys are enjoying it as well. Are you not meant to only read recite? Oh, actually, I answered that question. Yeah, I answered that question earlier on. Yeah. So guys, okay. So this is one of the pictures, guys. Yeah. Masjid Aqsa. So these pictures are now available merchandise. So these are £12, and I can do free postage and packing in the UK. Right. So these are my drawings. So I've got lots of drawings, the ones that you guys have seen. All right. So this is Masjid Aqsa, as you can see, and these are now available. The merchandise. So if anyone you guys want to buy them, they're £12, and you get free postage and packaging within the UK. Right, so this is the size. This is the size that they are. So if you can see that, imagine this is like a normal A4 page. So this is like, maybe you can say A3. That's very good quality paper as well. Very good quality page. Okay. So are you tired today? Yeah, I'm tired. Yeah, I had a course in the morning. I delivered a course, and just been tired. I felt very tired. Jazakallah khair for asking. So with Usul Shashi, how do we make sure that we don't forget what we're reading? The thing about Usul Shashi is to try and understand the masala, and then to try and in your mind to try and keep going over it. Right, the gist of it. That's the most important thing. It's difficult to memorize the whole of Usul Shashi. If you can memorize the entire Usul Shashi, like not word for word, but just like masala for masala. Right, that's the ideal way. But some people just find it easy, some people find it difficult. I'm not a person who can memorize a book straight away. I like to learn things by going over different books of the same topic. So if I go over a particular book and I go over a different book or the same topic, then I can remember that easily. Okay, last question. And how much at our level should we remember? If you are remembering 60% of the things, that's a very good. 60% of at each lesson. It's very excellent, very good. Alhamdulillah. Okay, Asbab al-Nuzul authentic. How do we think we should approach them? Sorry for the variety of questions, Shaykh. These are questions I've always had but never had. Okay, so when it comes to Asbab al-Nuzul, basically Asbab al-Nuzul, for those who don't know what it means like the background story for why a particular verse is revealed. Now this topic seems very straightforward, but it's actually very complicated. The reason it's complicated is because sometimes what happens is a verse might be revealed more than once. Same verse, it's revealed more than once. That's possible. And number two is the issue of the Sahaba saying this verse was revealed regarding this incident. That's actually not straightforward. It doesn't always mean that this particular incident was the reason for revelation. It could actually also mean that this verse was applied to this scenario. And Shawalillah Dehlawi, I'm gonna at the moment, inshallah, hopefully I should have enough. I'm gonna get a camera, right, and I'm gonna be making some videos, and I'm gonna go through some books, a series I'm gonna go through. That's gonna be, I'm not gonna be drawing and things like that. I'm just gonna be going through because I want a good quality camera. So at the moment I'm just saving up with the money through the patrons and all that. I'm saving up for a camera, very good high quality camera. And I'm going to be recording some books, and one of them is going to be Fawzul Kabir, Usul al-Quran, Usul Tafsir of Shah Walillah Dehlawi. And in there he has a section on this idea of when the Sahaba used to say this verse is revealed regarding this incident. What does that actually mean? Yeah, so that's basically, so like Wahidi's Asbab al-Nuzul by Wahidi. His is one of the most common ones that people quote, and then you got Suyuti's and others. They're very, very weak, as in the chain for those statements are very weak. It's well known. So you got to be very careful about that. What's the one thing you make sure not to miss out on during in Ramadan? Quran. Yeah, reading Quran, listening to Quran as much as I can, or even learning Quran, understanding meanings of Quran, making videos on Quran even. Yeah, that's the most. Anyway, guys, if there's nothing else, Jazakumullah khair for attending, guys. Thank you very much. Is this kind of a time, an okay time for you guys? Do you guys think this is a good time, or should I have made it later on? Okay, there was actually one more question, but Jalal answered that separately. Anyway, Jazakallah khair. I hope you guys benefited from this. If there's any other sort of questions, then please let me know. What's happened here? Is it frozen? Ameen, Jazakumullah khair. Okay, can you do a video for patrons on the course you did today? It was actually, that's a very good idea. Inshallah. Yeah, I think I'll do that for you guys. Yeah. Welcome, guys. Okay. I'm probably every week might be difficult, but inshallah we'll see. Hopefully, make dua, guys. Thank you very much, guys, for attending, and make sure you remember me in your duas, and remember everyone else here in your duas as well. And remember, any kind of question that you guys ask, I do not mind answering it. If I know the answer, I'll tell you I know the answer. If I don't know the answer, I don't know the answer. I'll just say it straightforward. Yeah, it'll be like that. So you can ask, inshallah. And remember, we shouldn't feel intimidated of asking any kind of question. Some of you guys, mashallah, Allah has given you the vein of asking questions. Yeah, He's like giving you the gene of asking questions, which is a very good thing. And some of you guys, Allah, or some of us guys, Allah doesn't give that gene. Yeah, so may Allah keep that gene active. Okay, so take care, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.